recently signed up for your programming, Steve. Really like the package. Over the last couple of months during my commutes, I've been tuning into your podcast. So, previously I was using a different LSAT prep course, but this is my second go around. And, I really want to do it right this time. I've applied previously almost 4 years ago, haphazardly, had a lot of personal and professional stuff going on. But now at the age of 31, a mature student with three beautiful daughters, if I'm going to make this investment, I'm looking not to just have a home run, but a very consistent and thoughtful effort. And that's why I signed up with LSAT Unplugged. And I believe I signed up for your premium package or supreme package because I did believe that I would need a few conversations with you one-on-one and some sort of frank advice, seeing that I plan to write November 13th. I roughly have 4 months to prep. And I wanted to make sure with my busy schedule, I took enough time.
Fantastic. Well, I'm excited to have you on board and help you rock the LSAT between now and November. So what's going on? How can I help? You got this. You got this. Yeah.
I'm excited. So, when I first wrote the LSAT, I wrote in 2017 fall. I was finishing my graduate program. I was interning for the office of our mayor in Toronto, and I had so much going on. But this time around, like where I need LSAT Unplugged's help is, understanding like with somebody like myself who scored a sub 150, how do I, not let that output with minimal effort sort of affect my confidence? And then also, secondly, with support your programming is now that I have 4 months, taking the time methodically and making sure that I understand the concepts. After understanding the concepts, Steve, how do I then apply my comprehension understanding of them to increase my speed by which I'm able to answer questions? So that's where I'm looking for help. And then I'll wrap up later in our conversation by giving you a bit of background on myself, and then also complement a conversation I attended with, I believe, Aaliyah and somebody else yesterday on admissions, which was very helpful. So that's where I'm looking for help, a more thoughtful, practical, day by day, week to week approach, and then being able to improve my understanding and speed ultimately.
Sure. Awesome. Let's do it. So know that your prep before joining the course, your program before that, whatever you got there doesn't define what you're going to do going forward. You've made a deliberate choice to radically change your prep over the next 4 months. So you've equipped yourself with a toolkit, with the videos, with the live classes. You can take full advantage of it. 4 months is plenty of time to work through whatever you need to within the course and change the nature of what you're doing. It's not just about watching videos and doing problems. It's about changing how you study, how you review in depth, how you learn from your mistakes. So you have different resources now that can serve your prep and serve your understanding so that you translate what happens untimed conceptually into the timed situations, for individual sections, full-length exams.
Yeah, and to that end, is there a particular time where you suggest that one takes a full-time exam? Because I'm of the opinion currently, based on the fact that I haven't written the LSAT for almost 4 years, right? Haven't really been in tune with the materials, but I'd like to wait a series of a time or a period of time before I decide to write a diagnostic, in essence.
That's exactly right. I think too many students jump into a diagnostic just to see how they'll do. And of course, doesn't typically go very well because you haven't learned the material yet, right? So it seems obvious in hindsight, but people get discouraged by that. And so even your prep from the past, your exam that you took in the past, you're going to do a lot of studying between now and November. So you'll be in a radically different place 4 months from now based on working through the material, attending the class sessions, reviewing in depth. So yeah, I would say build the foundation first. Yeah.
So speaking of building a foundation, I see that, and getting the data schedule and a breakdown, like you start off with ensuring that we read the orientation, that we have a full grasp of what we're being offered and how we best utilize the tools that you outlined at the start of our conversation today. And then secondly, I see that you want us to sort of dive into some conceptual understanding of logic games. And you decided to sort of, in your 4-month breakdown, look at the logic games first. But I do see that you offer different, 1-hour classes for folks who may have questions on, let's say, a Tuesday, you may have a reading comp session for an hour where folks can answer questions, and you have a 1-hour huddle. So how do you advise someone like myself who's starting off a bit fresh, who has a full-time job? How do you recommend I begin to, snack or, put my nose in some of those 1 hour sessions that you guys offer weekly?
Do whatever you feel the energy to do. So you can watch all the foundational videos in isolation at 3 a.m. whenever you want to and go through those. You can. But there's also a lot of benefit to community being with other people who are going through the exact same process as you. There's other people who have families, who have kids, who are working, and balancing all of that with LSAT prep. And so you can connect with them, form study groups, have study buddies, just have that connection, and you can help them, they can help you. And it might be that you're working on Logic Games Foundation, and yeah, there's classes on all different sections each week. If you want to dip your toes in the water of logical reasoning, go to the logical reasoning class. Even if you haven't gone through the fundamentals yet, that's fine. Obviously, you might get more out of it if you do watch some of the foundational videos first, but it's never too early to dive in and get a taste of what's going on. So I'd mix it up based on what you feel. If you can make it at 8 p.m. Eastern to go to a class, maybe you want to go to a class. Maybe you want to stick with the videos. It's up to you. But I would go to at least a class or two each week just to see the community there and start to build those connections.
Yeah, and that sounds like a great suggestion. So I'll definitely adhere to your advice, especially pertaining to, let's say, I'm starting off with the logic game section, and there's a community on logic game right now. And then I can jump in and listen a bit to that while I'm like finishing off dinner. And like I hear something that I'm like, oh, I picked up on this. This seems like a great idea. Maybe I can explore this further. And that's what I sort of did yesterday, attending your admissions huddle that was offered, meeting that was offered yesterday, where folks could ask questions on, getting letters of recommendation and that entire process, which I found very useful. So I want to quickly, in the next sort of 5 to 7 minutes, speak about my background because I'm a non-traditional student, right? I finished my undergraduate degree at 27 after being a life science student for a few years and then not going to school and working. And then once I completed my undergrad at 27, after switching into a more humanities, political science, community development type of program, I became very politically engaged, allowing me to get into a master's of public admin and policy program. I even ran for office, and I've worked for our mayor of my city, advised my former premier, which is like pretty much the governor, the head of the state, and the U.S. And then got some private sector experience. Now I'm like a senior bureaucrat in our government here in Canada. So I've had some great experiences since I last applied when I was 26, 27, and then now applying as a 31-year-old. How do you best suggest, Steve, I navigate like the supports you guys offer in terms of like, you may not be able to answer it all now, but how do I sort of craft my own narrative in terms of my own growth? I initially came in as, very advocate, community development style focused. And now I'm a bit more seasoned as somebody who's public policy, political focused now.
Yeah, that's an incredible background that you bring to the table when you're putting together a law school application. So you have the makings of several different potential law school admissions essays. And so I think what you're going to want to work on is how to narrow down what you choose to write about. I think a lot of folks in your position would be inclined to potentially try and summarize everything.
And that's what I did, Steve, previously.
Yeah.
When I first applied, I went through a very succinct breakdown of everything I did in a paragraph. And I picked up on that yesterday, but sorry, I interrupted. Go ahead.
No, sure. I mean, that's a natural inclination because you have so much great information to share, great stories to share. You want to share all of it, and you can share a lot of it, but there's different places for different things. So the resume can provide a summary. Maybe your personal statement is on one aspect of your work experience or running for office. Maybe a different essay like a diversity statement or an optional essay or an addendum touches on different elements. So you're going to want to divide and make some tough choices. But if you narrow for one essay, you can go a lot deeper with the details and add some color that engages the admission officers more.
And to that end about engaging the admission officers, I'm not trying to toot my own horn or play a trumpet, but because of the blessings I've had in terms of my professional experiences, Steve, I do feel like some of the top schools are at reach. I've been very fortunate in terms of the doors that have been open to me. I was also a semifinalist for the Steve Shoresman Scholars Program, the International Master's Program, where I was able to compete at a very high level. But I didn't have the greatest grades, right? I was a late blooming academic of sorts. I trended upward with a final year GPA of 3.9, and my GPA slowly went up, in completing a master's as well. So I'm not a perfect sort of GPA at all. So I love in terms of like the supports I get from this program that you guys offer of how to craft an addendum without making excuses, but also at the same time addressing things that admission officers may want to know. And I know there's a personal statement, the resume, there's the diversity statement that can speak to my unique experience of how I was raised, what I could bring to the school. And then there's an addendum where I've had one hell of a ride academically, where, you know, you see my resume and then you see my grades and it's not really going to add up. And that's been one of my insecurities, other than like making sure I get a good score. And now that I'm aiming for a 170 on the LSAT, that's been one of sort of my insecurities in terms of the whole application process of explaining my grades to, you know, requisite admission officers.
Well, let me tell you this straight up, like nothing is out of reach for you. Don't disqualify yourself.
No.
Don't disqualify yourself. Like your GPA could be whatever it was. You did have an upward trend, which they love to see. You also have incredible work experiences, incredible story, incredible life at only the age of 31. And so if you share all of that and you wrap it up on top of that with a top LSAT score, you could go wherever you want. I mean, obviously there's realities, but I would reach for whatever you want.
No, that's why I've come to the program. I feel like, you know, I'm trying to build the right infrastructure and day-to-day habits with my very busy schedule. And that's where I came to support, like the willpower, the focus, the discipline, that's on me. But in terms of the structure that could help dictate my habits, that's why I've come to LSAT Unplugged for support, Steve. And in these last 2 minutes, you know, do you wait until maybe a month to offer support in terms of admission packages? Because just yesterday in the conversation alone, I picked up on 5 to 6 things in terms of my own blind spots and gaps in terms of my application, because I'm a good writer. I'm a good storyteller. I'm very engaging on paper and not on paper. So I kind of gave too much credence to that capacity that I had in submitting my applications last minute. For instance, Canadian law schools, applications are due by November 1st. That's the hard deadline. I know in American schools, the first wave of sorts is around the same timeline. And I've been told for American law schools, you want to get in early in terms of your application. But I plan to write November 13th. So I look forward to sort of, you know, getting the admission support. But what sort of admission supports do you guys offer outside of the regular programming?
Sure. So even, I want to make sure I mention this just so you're aware, even inside the regular programming, there's weekly sessions on admissions. Every single week, there's something going on with admissions. You saw in the session the other day.
Incredible. Like, really good session.
Yeah. So they're the ones leading the sessions every week. So
wonderful.
Take advantage of those, attend, ask your questions. There's regularly personal statement workshops and workshops in other essays as well. So you can submit your draft and get feedback from them and others in the group. And then you could also reach out to them individually for something outside of the course in terms of more private one-on-one support. But you just email admissions@lsatunplugged.com and they'll talk through the details with you.
Yeah, no, awesome. You know, look forward to, you know, really sort of building out my habits and the next 4 months, and, you know, maybe chatting with you again a month from now based on my experience. But I'd like to thank you, Steve, for the conversation. And I'm really aiming high. Primarily because, you know, I strongly feel as though anything is in reach, and I've been very fortunate thus far in my career.
Fantastic. Well, I'm excited to have you on board. Let's keep the conversation going. You need anything at all, reach out. I'm happy to help.
Awesome. Have a good one, Steve.
You too.
Peace.
Thanks for tuning into the show. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already to be notified of new episodes as I release them. And feel free to reach out if you need anything at all as you move forward with your prep. I'm happy to help however I can. In the meantime, I'll wish you all the best and take care.